Welcome to the Verdant Verdict. I'm your host, Jacob Verdant. We got some new college football playoff rankings for you. A big week of college football, a lot of big things, but a lot of big things coming as well. So far, I'm going to dive right into it. I think that the biggest conferences are going to have their winners represent their conference in the college football playoff. That goes without speaking. The SEC has put a whooping on the nation in terms of how much they're winning and how many times they're able to crack into this top four and take it home. You saw it happen last year, the year prior. I mean, there's been several national championships where there's two SEC teams playing each other. So I could imagine Georgia or LSU, if not both, will be able to make it into the college football playoffs here. Georgia, of course, the defending national champions. The toughest test they've had all year would have been that Tennessee game, and
Right.
they came out of it last week. They did pretty good. Um, Stetson Bennett, though, this past Saturday threw a couple interceptions against the Mississippi State team. He also threw a couple interceptions against Florida. That kind of makes me wonder, those are teams LSU has been able to handle and LSU has been able to do pretty well against. And Jaden Daniels didn't throw a couple interceptions. So we're gonna sit here and wonder if that defensive pressure LSU can provide will be able to put a stop to Stetson Bennett's accuracy. He's sitting around 70%, fairly accurate quarterback. He's able to get motion, and most importantly, he's getting backed up on the other end. The defensive side is going to hold the ball down and get the ball back in his hands and allow him to make up for several mistakes he's made, the interceptions, what have you. Even in the SEC title game, you saw Georgia go down to Alabama last year, but guess what? National championship, they come back, they get their comeuppance, and Stetson Bennett's able to rewrite his wrongs. So I think this can go one of two ways here. If Georgia takes a loss, I don't see them falling out of the top four. They're the number one team in the country. They've proven a lot. They're the defending national champions. You got a great team, and I'm sure the game will be back and forth down to the wire. It'll be a slugfest. So with a loss, I'd see Georgia going to number 3 or number 4. However, LSU will be able to crack in here. So whatever spot Georgia wouldn't take out of there, I could see LSU busting in. They only got a couple teams in front of them. Oregon go ahead and drops because of the loss. So you got Tennessee, you got TCU, you got a couple teams that you're sitting here wondering if LSU is going to be able to crack in. But sitting at number 6 in the country, LSU's 2 spots away from busting in here, and a win against Georgia in Atlanta in that SEC title game would do them wonders. So with a win against Georgia, LSU, I think, is a lock for the college football playoffs. However, with a loss, they're going to get a pretty good bowl game, and Georgia's going to stay the number one team in the country. Vegas has Georgia as 15-point favorites. They've opened up with a landslide victory. Vegas, normally knows a lot. However, I'm hoping that they're kind of just erring on the side of caution and hoping to see some more of the same and the slow start that LSU's been putting on all year.
Yeah, it would definitely make sense, man. I just feel like the 15 points, that's just so much.
The 15 points is a lot. I think they might be looking back towards that Tennessee game, but at the end of the day, LSU hasn't had any big losses like that ever.
Right.
The only other loss they have under their belt's a 1-point loss down to the wire against Florida
The
State, who's
saddest thing.
also a ranked team. So I agree. A 15-point opening is rough. It's going to fluctuate as we get closer to game time. I think the LSU Tigers are going to be able to put in a good effort in the SEC title game. Make sure to leave your comments, leave your takes throughout the stream. Make sure to subscribe, follow, hit that like button. Also, if you like what you're seeing with this Oro merch, shout out Oro. Shop Oro with the link in the bio. You can even buy this shirt that I got on right here, right now. I got the links for y'all. Also got the links to the social. Make sure to give us a follow. We've been putting exclusive information out all season long, as we'll continue to do. But going back into this college football playoffs, it looks like LSU is going to have to figure some things out. This is a big test in front of them, their biggest test yet, their biggest test since, quite frankly, the 2019 SEC title game when they played Georgia to go ahead and bust into it. I think that whatever's going to happen here is really going to set the field for the rest of the
Right.
four. Whatever happens in this SEC title game will dictate where your Ohio State to the world will get in if they make it. And let's dive into that conversation here. Ohio State, that Big Ten Conference Championship will be decided not this week, but next week on who's going to
Right.
be able to enter. You got Ohio State playing Michigan. Big game. Saturday, November 26th will be the judgment day for the Buckeyes. As of right now, both teams are 10-0. I'd assume that they'd walk into that game 11-0 each. Ohio State, though, that running back depth is going to be in question. Mayan Williams carted off during the Indiana game. Before the injury, though, he racked up 147 yards, a big touchdown, and he was able to help out the Buckeyes in a rough situation as they're without their starter. Trevion Henderson, he averages 5.8 yards per carry, and he scored 6 times in 7 games. He's filling in big shoes, but now with Ohio State losing yet another running back, I'm not too sure if they're going to be able to just replace. CJ Stroud has great legs, great mobility, so they'll be able to pick up the slack in that area. However, this Michigan team is really playing with a lot a lot of brute force. This Big Ten football is always big boy football, run and gun, put the ball on the ground, and have your offensive line lead the way. And if Ohio State doesn't have the guys to put on the ground, I don't know if they'll have enough firepower to get in that Big Ten championship.
Yeah, man. Michigan's a real physical team. Like you were saying, dude, that depth is concerning. I mean, both of those guys were eating, but how far does that go? You
And
know,
you know, you got Mayan Williams saying that he's good, but when you see someone get carried off, or excuse me, carted off, even worse, it just is a bad image. It leaves a
scary.
bad taste in your mouth, and you're wondering, is he going to be able to be ready? Next week, they got Ohio State. It's an easy game in Maryland. They went ahead and hang 50-plus points on Indiana, so I could assume more of the same will be coming. Ohio State's a really explosive team, and if you're going to put them in the college football playoff, they're going to make someone sweat, and they're really going to test
For
a lot of
sure.
people, but I don't think they're going to be a national championship contending team. Ohio State normally falls out of it in the end. It just never really can make it that far.
Yeah, that game against Northwestern. I mean, I find myself asking a couple questions whether, what are the stipulations that has Ohio State playing like this? Is Northwestern, just getting the best of them, or does it have to do with the environment that they're in? I mean,
And they probably walked into that one with, thinking that they're gonna wipe them by 400
one and
points.
seven.
And at the end of the day, in these big games, people want to be up quick. Like Matt McMahon was talking about LSU basketball the other day when they were playing Kansas City, and he said, these guys know they're supposed to go in here and win this game by a lot, but they want to come in and within the first couple minutes be up. You got to
Right.
play the process and you got to do the small things and you got to prepare. Brian Kelly has highlighted preparation for LSU football all season and it's worked wonders. This team did a complete 180. They were looking like they were barely getting into the play, or excuse me, getting into bowl contention last season. Now they go ahead and do some great things, work some wonders, and it's looking like they could put together a double-digit win season right here in Brian Kelly's first year in Baton Rouge. I'm going to talk a little more about the Tigers here before we give the rest of our college football playoff predictions. I think that LSU is going to be able to make some noise regardless of who they're going to play. I think it'll be a good matchup across the board. You got a lot of good teams. My scariest game for him, of course, is going to be that Georgia game. I just think that defensive line on both sides of the ball, LSU and Georgia, will be firing on all night. They're going to go back and forth. They're probably going to try to one up each other. You got Harold Perkins on
Yeah.
one side of the ball, who's been lights out, playing through the flu as a freshman.
And man, Hercules.
Perky Lees is going crazy, Perk 40. But I think if we're getting a team like TCU or someone out of the Big 12, I'd feel a lot more comfortable with LSU being able to advance past the semifinals and be able to move into something. If they can make their way into the top four, anything's possible. Especially, like I said, you got teams like TCU. TCU got a great defensive effort against the number 18 Longhorns. But at the end of the day, Quinn Ayers had a rough game,
True.
slow start. I'm just really wondering the legitimacy behind this and behind the number 4 ranking and whether or not the TCU Horned Frogs will actually be able to hold up against an SEC team who has already upset Alabama, upset Ole Miss, beat Florida, beat Auburn, beat Mississippi State. They're doing some wonders. Texas A&M has a worse record than Vanderbilt, so I know that LSU is more than likely in a good position to win out. The toughest game's already under the belt and a 13-10 win as of this week. So I think the UAB game is going to be a walkthrough. But TCU, they're more than likely going to come out of that Big 12. I'm not too worried about the Big 12, though. The last time we've had a Big 12 national champion, it was in 2005. It was those Texas Longhorns.
Long time ago.
I think that speaks wonders in the legitimacy of the conference in terms of are they able to keep up with the SEC? Are they able to keep up with some guys out of the Big Ten? Because that's going to be their matchup when it's all said and done. But look,
Right.
at the end of the day, the DBs did their thing and they had the wide receivers covered in a blanket all night. Quinn Ayers was scratching his head, but you got to think if you move in away from the Big 12, we're going to talk about some other guys. We're going to go to the Pac 12. I think this is going to be where the race widens. You got USC sitting at 9-1. They make a pretty big case. Trojans averaging 42 points, 512 yards. They can easily explode into this race with a big loss of Oregon last night. Oregon's going to open that wide open. Caleb Williams, I trust him. He's put several key pieces together. They've had a pretty fair year. Lincoln Riley is a pretty trustworthy guy.
I'd agree.
It's a good hire for USC. He's going to transition that success that he had at Oklahoma fairly well, I believe. I think that, I trust this team to be able to make it out and represent their conference, whether that be in a big bowl game, whether that be in the college football playoff. I'm not too sure. Like I said, depending on the way this SEC title game goes, it can completely open up the floor. If the number 1 team in the country loses, let's say Ohio State and Georgia lose. If Ohio State can't even make it to the Big Ten Conference Championship, now you got Michigan fluctuating in, you got Georgia fluctuating down, LSU's coming in. That can open a lot of spots. That can move a lot of people around. And at the end of the day, these guys are going to be voted in. Would you really want
Right.
to pass on USC or on LSU or on Tennessee when you got TCU sitting here? I mean, TCU, you can look at the numbers, you can look at the schedule, you can look at a lot of things and just really wonder, are these guys ready? Are these guys going to
Right.
buy in? Are they going to perform when the lights get bright? I don't know if I'd be able to put money or even a little bit of confidence in TCU to make it past the Tennessees, the LSUs. It's going to be rough. You got a lot of guys
For
sitting on the
sure.
brink waiting to take that fourth seed. The fourth seed's normally the seed that's going to fluctuate the most. Number one will probably be locked based off of, like I said, if the Georgia Bulldogs can stop LSU. If they're not going to be able to stop LSU, more than likely your Big Ten champion is going to move into the number one spot. And Georgia might fall as low as number three. They could go slide down to two. LSU's going to crack in. And at the end of the
Right.
day, if you get Ohio State winning this game against Michigan, winning the conference championship, moving them in the number one seed, I'd be fine with LSU Ohio State matchup in the semifinal. It'd be a pretty
It'd be
fun game,
interesting.
and if LSU can push the pace and do that, it'd be great. Ideally, we don't face Georgia right away because I wouldn't want to face Georgia, take a
Back to
break,
back
and
like
then
that.
face Georgia again.
Right.
Yeah, Georgia knows how to count their pieces and really put it down and get to work. I think the Georgia Bulldogs are probably the scariest team in college football. They've been doing it all. They've been knocking on the right doors. Seeing how Georgia's going to handle this LSU matchup will be great. But you got the guys going crazy. You got the guys in LSU full of confidence. You got Jaden Daniels and Josh Williams and all the big boys post and see in
Yeah.
Atlanta. So I couldn't imagine how the LSU football team is going to be able to handle this and just all the excitement that's going to come with it. What do you think about the LSU's chances? The SEC title games locked in Saturday, December 3rd, 3 o'clock. As of right now, number one and number seven, but subject to change.
Right. Right. Man, I want to say, LSU's going to come out strong. They're going to have a good performance. But like you were saying, man, Georgia is scary. Stetson Bennett is a really, really good athlete. He's has a high IQ. He puts it all on display. I mean, he's such an athletic guy.
And if we're going to look at the rankings and the averages, we're going to spill some statistics here. Georgia and LSU. LSU's averaging 32.6 points per game. Georgia's averaging 41. So it's a 9-point differential, which isn't that bad. It isn't the 15 points that Vegas is preaching and predicting. I'm going to go ahead and slide on Georgia not getting that spread. But the points allowed, though, this is where it gets interesting. LSU allows 21 points. Georgia 13. So Georgia isn't even averaging a full 2 touchdowns to their opponents yet. LSU, can get them in the end zone a couple times. Might be able to get some things rolling early on. LSU kind of starts slow. You've seen him against
Yeah.
Arkansas start slow. I mean, even the Alabama game, sure, we held Alabama to 9 points through the third quarter, but at the end of the day, LSU was not exactly firing all cylinders either. The Tennessee game took a little bit to go. I think if LSU can start early, it'd be a whole lot different. But look, this defense has been lights out. Look at the Alabama game. Look at what they were. Look at the Ole Miss game. Harold Perkins has been on
Where it all
fire for
came onto
three, four
display.
days in a row. I'd hate to sit next to Harold Perkins. You'd immediately burn down. You're the temperature whenever Harold Perkins walks in the room has to increase by 100 degrees with how much he's been playing on fire. The kid can't miss. You can't block him. I wouldn't want to line up against him. That's all I got to say. Whether you're Hendon Hooker, whether you're Stetson Bennett, Bryce Young, Jackson Dart, it don't matter. He's going to put the pressure on you and he's going to make you sweat. And as the confidence grows and as the responsibility grows, as the role grows, as the permissions grow, he's going to be on the field more and more, doing more and more things. It's impossible to keep Perk 40 off the field now. We were sitting here watching him not get in and scratching our heads wondering, why the hell aren't you going to put one of the best players out in the field? But, they had to figure out that scheme. Matt House is the genius. And at the end of the day, he figured it out. He implemented it and it's working well.
Right. You could definitely see so much potential behind Perk 40. I mean, you could hear just the commentators going on and on about how he's the next great coming out of LSU, next great Russian linebacker. Just so many comparisons to former greats, and it's definitely interesting to see, and how he's going to progress and improve on to next year.
I think that Harold Perkins reminds me a lot of a Tyrann Mathieu. He's able to impact the play with impact the game with one big play. He can take over, he can end the game, he can win the game, he can be in the
Right.
game all day and still at the end give you 100% energy, 100% effort. He's LSU through and through. I mean, he's got the eye of the tiger tattooed on his body for the rest of his life. I couldn't imagine this kid doesn't do anything but eat, sleep, breathe LSU football. I mean, this guy's playing through the flu, balling, and I mean, I couldn't imagine playing through the flu in
I
what
was about to
50
say
degree weather.
that was crazy to hear about. I mean, that he could play through that and play at that level. I
Play
mean,
at that level, and I mean, it's like the flu games give you superpowers. It's interesting. I wonder if anybody else has got the flu at LSU and if they're going to be playing through that.
Reasonable question.
It's pretty interesting. But looking at Oregon's situation, though, I don't really know why Oregon fell. I mean, sure, Bo Nix is he's about as accurate can get, I'd believe. He's averaging 15 yards per pass in that Washington game, but it's still going to go down to the wire. Washington, number 25, is going to take it by 3, 37-34. If you look at the rushing game, Bo Nix got his 60 yards, averaging 6.6 per carry. Their two running backs, Irving's averaging 7.5, Whittington's averaging 5.4. You just got to look at these numbers and really scratch your head. I mean, what's going on? What's happening with Oregon? Are they going to be able to draw out of this and maybe make a case against USC, or are they just going to roll over and let the Pac-12 race open up? They're in a four-way tie right now on who's the leader and who's going to be able to represent this conference when it comes down to the bowl games and hypothetically the college football playoffs. I don't know if Oregon can get the job done. They had a big transfer in Bo Nix. They have great talent in Ty Thompson. What do you do in this situation if you're Oregon?
Man, it's a really good question. The last thing you do is just lie over and take it. You said it's a four-way tie. I mean, you definitely could tell there's still potential left. I mean, Bo Nix had a good game, like you said. I feel like if the running game can improve a little bit more and it can incorporate, those receivers and all of that, I mean, I think they can definitely shake back, and hopefully win out that division.
And they need to play some defense. The college football playoffs will be determined who plays the best defense. And obviously, the classic cliche coach speak, who makes the least mistakes, of course. And that's going to come off of sound defense, sound performance, and doing the little things. I think that if you're going to go out and play sound, I'd rather have a lights out defense in this college football day and age rather than an incredible offense, because you see incredible offenses such as, I mean, excuse me, Alabama has great talent. Bill O'Brien's doing some questionable things, but look at Bryce Young. He's just getting hindered. He's losing a couple games. Sure, the Ole Miss game was big, but the LSU game, the
Right.
Tennessee game, those games make me wonder, you know, defense might be able to just kind of push a team over and give a team a little bit of boost,
Yeah.
keep the other guys off the field, let your offensive guys rest. If you're going back and forth and your defense is getting pushed off the field, and or your offense is getting pushed on the field and you got to throw these guys back in the fire like Texas Longhorns. You can't have Quinn Ayers tossing up duck after duck after duck
It
and
was
have your defense
crazy.
go back out there. You're burning the guys out. You're
Yeah.
burning the guys out.
You could definitely see when you're talking about that great offense. You could see the great offense versus great defense on display versus, Tennessee and Georgia. Tennessee has a great offense, but I mean, it got shut down by that Georgia
And
defense.
I think that Georgia's offense doesn't get enough credit for how highly ranked they are. They're in the top 5 offenses, in my opinion, if you're going to ask me. I think that Georgia's going to be able to push the pace on both sides of the field and create havoc for anybody that they're playing against. When they
True.
play LSU, we're going to have to worry about, is Jaden Daniels going to be able to handle the pressure? Is the running game going to be able to get going? Josh Williams is a big boost, and when he's playing well, we're playing well. But when we're playing a stacked defensive line, do you want to try to push him through that hole, push him through the trenches? Do you trust Jaden Daniels to let it rip and face the brunt of that attack in the passing game? You're going to have a lot of decisions to make. They're going to have to get really creative. Mike Denbrock has been tested time and time and time again. He's coming from Cincinnati, so he's been in this situation before. He's looked at the college football playoffs in the face, and he's looked at Alabama in the face, and he's had to prepare for some of the worst situations of his coaching
Yeah,
career,
it
and he's
definitely
done
was
it
a
with a
good
straight face.
situation.
So I think that Mike Denbrock is going to be able to make some things work. Jaden Daniels is growing confidence by the minute. You got everyone bought in. K. Sean had a great game. Malik's doing great. Jeray Jenkins, big boost. I think that if Georgia if Georgia's going to put us in a situation where we're going to have to pass all game, it might be a little worrisome because we've just never done that. We've never pushed
Right.
a pace and only passed. It's been a fairly balanced offense in a sense where we're going to run the ball a little bit more. Look at the Arkansas first half. We got 27 runs, 7 passes. It,
Little
the
imbalance.
proof is in the pudding. I think that it's good in a sense where Jaden's gonna sit there and try not to turn the ball over and try to keep possession and try to draw the play out as much as he can. He's not gonna give up, roll over, roll one out of bounds. The things I'd like to see Jaden Daniels work on is just be a little more accurate on the sidelines. There's some instances where you got someone shrieking down on the seam or something and the ball goes out, or it's kind of a 50-50 ball, so he puts it in a spot where he only wants his guy to get it, which is smart, which is what you
Yeah.
want, but sometimes we're going to have to make the tough throws. And I think, he knows that now. I don't think, he's not an idiot by any means. He's got a great football IQ. And from speaking with him, he's one of the more confident athletes in there. I think With that being said, with the big game he's having, and when people finally give him the credit where credit's due, he's going to enter a new realm, a new state of mind. No one's doubting him anymore, and that means a lot. You know, when you got the fans sitting here wondering if this is the guy, if he's going to be able to stay, if he's going to do this or that, or why he's not doing this or that, I'm sure it doesn't play as big of a role as people would think. Like, oh, he can't play now. No, that is, he's going to tune out the noise, but it's got to be frustrating to open your phone and
Oh
just see
yeah.
people. I mean, yeah, Keishon Boutte and Malik Neighbors at the beginning of the year deactivated their Instagrams. It got so bad. But, you know, this team has been able to handle things like that and adversity and just different distractions. And when the lights get brighter, when people don't believe in them, they've been able to hit that nail in the head, take it all on the chin, and move forward. I've been proud of LSU. I've been proud to watch them grow. I mean, this team has done a lot that no one would have thought of. No one would have dreamed that we'd be sitting here predicting if LSU is going to be able to be in the college football playoff. They're sitting here in the SEC title game. I mean, we're
Right.
a couple weeks away from one of the biggest games of Brian Kelly's career, of LSU's football career, and we're also a couple weeks removed from some of the more confusing times of LSU football. I mean, we're sitting here in Florida State going into the Southern game. People who go to Southern are saying they're going to beat us. I mean, we got the whole nation is doubting
It lit a
LSU at the
fire under
beginning.
him.
It did. The great games they got to whoop the Lobos. They got to whoop Miss State and ground that air raid and Mike
So much
Leach.
noise leading up to that one.
They did a lot of big things that, really pushed the pace for me. When they're going to go on that big SEC stretch, you're going to Auburn, you're going to Florida, you're going to Arkansas, you're coming back home, you're going to play Ole Miss, you're going to play Tennessee, you're going to play Bama. They only lost one of those games. SEC West, they've handled every task, whether it be tall, whether it be confusing, whether it be complicated. They figured it out. They got it done. Yeah, I might have had a heart attack 2, 3, 4, or 500 times throughout the game, but it worked out. It was worth it. I'm glad that I got to witness this. It's been really cool to see these guys grow.
What a ride so far, man.
What a ride! It ain't over yet, though. At the end of the day, if LSU can't make it out this SEC title game, which, quite frankly, I'm gonna say it again, isn't as impossible as people would think.
Right,
I think
right.
LSU has a fairly good chance. I mean, yeah, Vegas is writing them off early on, but the Tigers have been written off in a lot of instances. The
Since the
Tigers
very beginning.
the Tigers have been written off for a couple big games that they've been able to pull out of. And at the end of the day, if these guys can get together and push through this adversity, make it to the college football playoff by defeating Georgia, I, how would you stop them?
I was just about to say that, man. What's stopping him?
How would you stop that when they have been on a huge win streak? Brian Kelly sitting there hyping the boys up, giving them those big moments when they need him most. Brian Kelly's a great coach. Brian Kelly's going in and he's finding connections with the guys. He's learning who to trust. He's learning what to do and who to put in certain situations. And when you learn your team, and when not only that though, when you respect your team, when they respect you, they're going to deliver. They're going to deliver when they practice. They're going to deliver when they're in the film room. They're going to deliver when they're at home on a bye week, and you're not even wondering if they're working because you know these boys are dogs. You know they get in the mud. You know they get dirty. I asked Josh Williams how he enjoyed his bye week, and Josh Williams was sitting here busting his tail, and it shows. I mean, you got all kind of guys biting and clawing at the moment to play in big games, and that desire, that hope, that perseverance, push through, got them to where they are now. It's been crazy. I mean, before the year, you wouldn't have even thought guys like Josh Williams or Jaden Daniels would be in the talk of the best college football players in the nation, like they are. Josh Williams is an explosive back. He's getting through all the holes. He's getting the big runs, the big plays. John Emery's also had a big impact.
John Emery's had some big runs, man. Some big, impressive runs.
John Emery has shocked the team with like adrenaline in the middle of the game with those huge runs. He's high stepping. He's juking and reaching into the end zone in Tiger Stadium. I mean, John Emery has single handedly almost been responsible for the collapse of 2, 3 different stadiums in the nation.
It's
He's
true.
he's been lights out. I'm glad that he's been able to get back in his performance. John Emery, he just worries me, man, with that with every now and then it seems like he drops the ball or he might get a little too worried about the past,
Yeah.
the past, whether or not he's been here or he's been suspended in certain instances, and I think that that's catching up to him. He might be worried, like, man, I gotta eat, I gotta eat. It's time.
Yeah.
He just needs to relax a little bit, and he's doing well. He's been able to relax and knock
Sure.
that rust off and ease back into the scheme. And he did a lot of things people wouldn't think he'd be able to do. He's integrated himself in the LSU's offense fairly well. Brian Kelly has had nothing but great things to say about him. He said that even when the couple game suspension he faced at the beginning of the year, which was crazy, he said, he did everything he needed to do in the football field. He did his part, and it was just up to really up in the air. It's a confusion as to why that happened, especially after serving a whole year suspension. That was pretty interesting. But he's been able to face that adversity and come through it. Keishon Boutte, also another athlete who faced adversity. He had a slow start to the year. He had a couple big time catches he lost. He's sitting here in his draft year, becoming a father, and trying to work out this new phase of his life. There's a lot of big things that have changed for Keishon Boutte, but I trust that his draft stock stayed heavy. I'd trust him with a top 15 pick. There's a lot of teams that need someone like Keishon Boutte. Sadly, the New Orleans Saints need a good wide receiver, but they're not going to be able to do anything
The New
because they don't
Orleans
have no
Saints need a
first
lot,
round pick.
man. They need a lot.
The New Orleans Saints are looking rough, man. That Steelers game had me worrying.
Man, I was sitting in my living room watching that game, and just being a Saints fan, it broke my heart, man. It broke my heart.
Broke my heart a lot. But moving back to the college football playoffs, I'm excited with the way the AP poll has been leaning out. It's making me feel like LSU is going to get the credit where credit is due when the college football rankings, the real poll comes out, because we're not going to judge ourselves off the AP poll. But looking at the AP poll that was released today, LSU sitting at number 6, right behind Tennessee. They move up one spot. Oregon's going to fall to number 12, outside the top 10. Also outside the top 10, you got Ole Miss dropping, you got UCLA dropping, and Tulane has fell to number 21 after taking a loss last week. They fell 5 spots.
Poor
But
guys.
Tulane was riding that wave fairly high. You had some people wondering if Tulane was going to be able to get into the top 10. You had some people putting them at 13. You had a lot of questionable moments. You still got some people putting them in the top 20 after last week, which is
Oh,
if you
man.
think that they're worth it, go ahead. But I think that the Tulane Green Wave, they got some work to do. It's a big task for an American Athletic Conference team to be ranked. So the fact that they
Sure.
were able to do it and hold on for this long and put up impressive performances is just great. I think Tulane, they're getting their stripes, but sadly I mean, I'm looking at Florida State ranked under him. I'm looking at on this person's specific poll. I'm looking at Cincinnati ranked under him. I just wouldn't. The AP poll got some interesting voters. You got some interesting cats who
Mm.
think some teams deserve to be in front of others. I think man, make me an AP poll voter. That's what I think.
It'd be better than some of these polls that they throw in there.
Yeah, I think that if you give me the AP poll voting privilege, I don't know if I'd have Tulane in the top 25.
I would have to agree with you, man.
I
I
don't
would
know
have
if
to
I'd
agree with
have
you.
TCU in the top 4.
You're telling me, bro. I'm
And
not
then
gonna
we got
disagree with
we
you.
got Oregon creeping in after that loss to a bottom team. I'm dropping them out of the top 15. I'm dropping them low. I'm dropping them 10 spots. I'm dropping them a lot. That's
They did
that's
drop a good
worrisome.
bit.
And Will Levis had a pretty rough game last night or yesterday as well. I mean, what's going on with the Kentucky Wildcats? What's going on with his draft stock, and how is the league going to be able to handle all these players coming in?
There's a huge draft class coming in, man. They were riding high on Will Levis.
Will Levis's rushing yard total for the W against Missouri, 21-17. Missouri went ahead and stretched another one as they did with Georgia down to the wire. Will Levis, negative 36 yards rushing. What's going on, Will? What's going on, man? Let's take it back to the NPA. Let's slow some things down. Let's go talk to P-Man. Let's talk to the sheriff. Let's figure out what we need to do, man. Because I like Will Levis. I think he's a big build. I like the school he went to.
Yeah,
Kentucky's a SEC school. Not the best SEC school, but it's
one
one
of
of
them.
them. It's
Yeah,
in there at least. You're not Texas A&M. It could be a lot worse. But I like Will Levis, big guy. I think that he'd be able to make some things work, bro. He's a respectable guy. I got to see him this offseason. I got to see a lot of interesting quarterbacks this offseason that'll be in the draft. Another one's Bryce Young. I'm interested to see how Bryce Young's draft stock will be impacted after these recent performances. He's
that's a
doing
good
well.
question.
You get such a mixed reaction. I put a poll on my Instagram at Verdant Verdict on whether or not Bryce Young will still be the number one pick or number one projected pick or what have you. And you got people responding. I mean, how would he even be in the first round? Which is a dramatic take. But you got people just questioning the legitimacy of Bryce Young all in all. Is it because he's small? Is it because of the losses? It's because of Bill Bryan? What is it? What do you think?
I'd heard a lot of noise about his height, man. They were saying he doesn't have that vision. He can't see over the line. They were saying, which
Right.
at the end of the day, I find is a little disrespectful. I mean, he has a high IQ, man. I think he gets it done.
I agree. You got guys like Drew Brees who have been able to kind of kill that narrative, as well as Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is 6'2". He's not a big guy.
Right.
You got Tom
Compared to
Brady's and
yeah.
Peyton Manning's who are creeping up on 6'4", 6'5". But Guys like Bryce Young, especially in today's day and age, you can follow suit under a Kyler Murray or a similar person too. And I mean, you got a lot of
Right.
guys who are mobile quarterbacks who don't necessarily need to stand behind the offensive line. Maybe Bryce Young can move, take a couple steps back, instead of 7 yards, or excuse me, 7 step, you can go 9, go 11. You can move to the side. You can even move the gaps around the offensive line. I think he's done pretty well at Alabama. So, I mean, at this point, I'd put him in the combine, and I wouldn't I wouldn't rule him out because of the losses. I wouldn't rule him out because of Bill O'Brien. What I would do is I want to test him between the ears. I want to test how he's going to handle adversity and how he's going to handle different things. Judging with the conversations I've had with him, he's a pretty humble kid and he's poised. And when he has bright lights in his face, he can at least create. Look at the LSU game. It was down to the wire, and they did their part. LSU slammed the door when they had an opportunity to win. Alabama goes for 1. They get the PAT. They play it safe. They get the 7. That's cool. Brian Kelly gets 6, and he says, well, 8 beats 7. 8 beats 7. 8 with the 2 point sends Nick Saban home crying, and also spirals Bryce Young's draft stock out of control. So with Bryce Young, he told me that he's able to block the noise out, stay focused on what the task is right now. Nick Saban has told me that he tells guys like Bryce, like Mark, like Mac Jones, who win Heisman's, that they're not going to remember how you played a month ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, what have you. They're going to remember how you play right now. So focus on what you need to do right now. Focus on what you need to do to carry out this season in this year. Bryce Young's season isn't over. They got a couple games left. They got a big bowl game left. They're still in the top 10 of teams in the
Right.
country. So they're going to play a fairly good team. If Bryce Young can finish this out and right not his wrongs, but Alabama's wrongs, and kind of just change the tune of the program going into the offseason, I think it'd be all right. If you go in there and play another top 10 team in a bowl game and Bryce Young puts on a stellar performance and Alabama whoops him, I'd feel good about it.
Yeah.
So Bryce Young's season isn't over. Bryce Young isn't going to be in a world of hurt. I like the kid. I think he's one of the more talented quarterbacks in this class. But it's the quarterback position is so hard to judge.
Right.
How do you judge who you're going to draft? How do you judge if they're going to do good? How they're going to adjust to the NFL scheme? If they're going to be hurt? There's a lot of different things.
It's real hard to gauge.
And you need your guys to buy in on them too. You're going to put so much money and time and effort into getting this guy to your city. You got to hope the team buys him, man. Look at Jordan Love in Green Bay. That was rough. Or look at Malik Willis with Ryan Tannehill. Oh, I don't got to teach him. Really, Ryan?
Yeah, it's an odd relationship.
It's an odd relationship. And, I mean, you even got guys like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers who kind of butted heads a little bit. So Aaron might have transitioned that over to his relationship with Jordan Love. But he's doing well with Jordan now, I think. It's just, I think a lot of pressure's been off him just because of the MVPs back-to-back. And he's also...
And he was flexing a bunch tonight. How about them cheeseheads?
Yeah, how about them cheeseheads? I should have brought my cheesehead down. We take care of the Cowboys. We own the Cowboys. It's not America's team. It's our team. I own a piece of the Packers, so theoretically I do own a piece of the Cowboys as well. And then Aaron Rodgers did let Chicago know that he owns the Bears too.
Man owns multiple NFL teams.
The dude is a mogul.
Looking in.
A mogul. He owns multiple NFL teams and multiple MVP awards. You know who doesn't? Drew Brees.
Sad.
Well, we got a lot of
nice career.
We got a lot of college football things to talk about. We'll be going live again Sunday night. But big game for LSU. UAB at 8 o'clock. Who's going to win? I'd have to put my money on the Tigers. Matter of fact, I have to put my house truck. I put everything on the Tigers. I think that the UAB Blazers are going to come in here and they're gonna take it all in. They're going to look at the sights. They're going to feel all the noise in Tiger Stadium. And they're going to get whooped and pushed out. It'll be a big one. It'll be 8 o'clock. It'll be a cold one. And hopefully it won't rain.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Man, I felt bad for him playing the other day. It was yesterday, matter of fact. I mean, they were showing the highlights of them having to scrape the ice off the field before the game. I was
Scrape
like,
the ice off. You
man.
got chicken broth and coffee sitting in coolers on the side. I mean, people were criticizing LSU for that. They were saying it ain't that cold to bring out that chicken broth in them coolers. Man, we're from
You trying to get
Louisiana,
'em right.
dude. Yeah, we're from Louisiana. Y'all better chill out. Y'all in Arkansas with the snow and whatnot, what have you. I've seen snow once in my life.
For real.
So if it gets into ice or freezing temperatures, I can understand where the chicken broth would be necessary. I'd be on the side in the heater. I'd be in a blanket in a park. I'd go in the locker room in between plays. I don't know what I would do, but that'd be rough. This UAB game's going to test me. Last year around this time, we had Arkansas. Arkansas again, but sadly we didn't get the boot. They came into the stadium, 16-13 overtime win last year under Coach Orgeron. This year, close game, 13-10, field goal
Scary
away.
game.
It was very close. These two teams are growing a bit of a rivalry.
Yeah, that Golden boot, man.
That golden boot back home. Our boot in the boot. LSU on top, taking Arkansas down. You love to see it. If you watch the stream, thank you. I appreciate your time. Make sure to subscribe, like, be a friend, tell a friend about the Verdant Verdict. Follow us on social media, links in bio. Make sure you shop Oro official merch. We got links in the bio for this exact shirt. We got a lot of other things that we'll be pushing you. This shirt's 50% off right now, $18. I'll go ahead and show you the back of it. We got some skeletons croaked out on the parade grounds, getting lit. We got an SEC title game coming up. So, I mean, what better time to celebrate? What better time to cash in than
Rep your
now?
team, man.
Big sale, Oro official. Go ahead and use the links. Support the show. Support the boys. Follow us on social media. Because if we can find a ticket to that title game, we're in there. We're in there. So you know that coverage is coming. Hit the follow button. We'll be live again in a week. Thank y'all for tuning in. This has been the Verdant Verdict.